This is probably my 8th time trying to record this because I keep getting blinded in my eyes, just like...
This is fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Waiting for the next attack. You better stand, there's no turning back. 2 minutes to midnight. The lights are living in the golden years. Can I play with madness? Bring your daughter to the sun. Let's never falling down. Future real, what is real? Your time will come. I'm on my way. The pressure of knowing the final frontier. I don't know where, I don't know where.
Everybody, and welcome back to the Heels and Quads channel. I'm Levi, not joined by Tommy, as we continue our respective album rankings. I'm wearing my blue light blockers because, as you can see there in the background, we have a lot of snow on the ground right now, and it's been blinding me. Like, I can't do it. So anyways, today we have reached number 12 on the Iron Maiden ranking series. This album was the first one that was released after I became a fan of Iron Maiden, after I discovered Iron Maiden. So this was my first album I got to partake in the release and go buy it. This one kind of flies under the radar, I think. I think a lot of fans don't mention it a lot, and it doesn't get the love it deserves. Disclaimer, this one and number 11 are pretty tied for me. So 11 and 12, very interchangeable. Very interchangeable. So it'd be like 12 and 12 and a half. A Matter of Life and Death from 2006. A Matter of Life and Death was released August 25th, 2006 in Italy and Finland. August 28th for the rest of the world except Japan, Canada, and US. It was released September 5th for those 3 countries. But like, it had a kind of a weird slow rollout over the course of a week or two. A Matter of Life and Death flies under the radar, and I think it's because it just doesn't, a lot of these songs aren't played anymore. Actually, I don't think any are played anymore on live sets. Now, when this album released, they did A Matter of Life and Death tour. They did play the album in its entirety, and then they also played quite a few songs from, I think 5 or 6 from The Number of the Beast due to its 20-year anniversary. I guess that was met kind of with mixed reviews as far as like playing the album in its entirety. This album holds like a super special place in my heart, and that's why I say, honestly, I could probably put it higher, but if I'm doing this in a sense of like ranking albums, this could be my top album, honestly, just because it was the first album I got to partake in the release. And this album was met with pretty solid reviews. The band said the album was really easy to put together, and they actually finished with like 2 months to spare. There is a documentary on YouTube that comes with a deluxe edition of the CD, but you can also pull it up on YouTube. It's like 45 minutes or whatever, but it kind of goes through track by track, and they talk about the writing process following Dance to Death in 2003 and the precursor to The Final Frontier in 2010, I believe. A Matter of Life and Death just kind of falls where it falls, and I don't hear people talk about it. I don't hear people mention it a lot. And even the singles, Different World and Reincarnation of Benjamin Brigg, you don't hear a lot about, and you don't see them on set lists. It's just kind of odd, but I think the album deserves more credit than it gets, or at least it gets credit, but it just deserves more playtime than what it gets, because it's a really solid record. Like I said, met with super positive reviews. Most of their albums are, I think, aside from like the mid-90s albums. Tim Bradstreet did the artwork, and this was the only one that he did, but he said it was like a dream come true because he kind of aspired to do like Derek Riggs style work. The album has a lot of war and religion focused lyrics and themes, but it is not a concept album, according to the band. But you get a lot of that. These colors don't run, for the greater good of God, different world. I do remember that even when I was a kid and I bought this album. I was like, wow, this is very like what's going on? I was, being a kid, I didn't keep up with what was going on in the war. I wasn't like, didn't grow up in like a news watching household. Is there big stuff happening? Because this album seems like the end of the world's coming. The band also said during the recording of the album, there's a ton of first takes on this record. Like I said earlier, they said it was really easy to record it, and it just kind of came together, and there was 2 months to spare for the studio time, or like whatever record label deadline. I believe it was Steve that said it in the documentary. He's like, there's a lot of first takes on this record. It shipped over 1 million copies in its first week and sold 56,000. So do the math there. That's kind of, that's a 20th. So they're probably all sold today. So why does A Matter of Life and Death fall at number 12 on the list? Well, I kind of said it earlier. I think the album's longevity in set lists and just it kind of flying under the radar puts it here on the list because people don't see it as like a top tier Iron Maiden album. Maybe some do. And I do for a nostalgia factor, and also because it is a really good Iron Maiden record. But again, I've said it in every video I've done so far, when you set it up against The Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, you know, that 80s run, it's hard to put it in the top 10. This falls perfectly as a 2000s Iron Maiden record, a 2010s Iron Maiden record. The 2000s to now, it is a specific Iron Maiden, and this album is the formula exactly for that. It has a heavier kind of sound to it as well. Like everything's very just darker and heavier and real chuggy. And chuggy's probably not the word for it, but just da 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 dun 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 dun. A lot of E chords happening here. My highlights: Different World.
Everybody has a different way to view the world.
One of the singles. These Colors Don't Run. For the Greater Good of God. The Reincarnation of Benjamin Brigg. The Pilgrim, and then The Legacy, the closer. It's super epic for a closer. Iron Maiden tends to have a good closer to the record. You know, In the Rime of the Ancient Mariner and Power Slave. Like, that's like one of their first epics. Phantom of the Opera wasn't a closer, but kind of an epic. The album maintains a pretty good pace, but we run into that issue midway through where we get those long songs. The last 4 tracks actually bounce back and forth at 7 minutes, 9 minutes, 7 minutes, 9 minutes. So it makes for a bit of a taxing listen. I think the album comes in at, 71 minutes and 53 seconds for 10 songs, which it's not terrible. There's a lot of other albums out there that are, an hour long at that point, but this is, like I say, it's that distinct era difference for Iron Maiden. When the 2000s hit, they kind of focused on longer songs and more epic, melodical storytelling, and they've done really well with it. And like I said in the previous review of Senjutsu, they continue that formula of the 2000s and 2010s. A Matter of Life and Death, I actually have a fun little story about it. I got really into Iron Maiden, and then this album came out, and then I was on a field trip at school, and one of my friends, we went to a Hot Topic in the mall when we were in our downtime, and they had a shirt, A Matter of Life and Death. The album cover on the front, 2 guns on the back, and I can't remember what it said, but my buddy bought it for me, and was like, hey, just pay me back. And we're kids. I was like, that's really cool, so shout out to him. He knows who he is if he ever sees this, but I won't name drop. But anyways, I remember my mom being worried about me wearing it to school because of the guns on the back. She thought it was going to be an issue, but I wore it to school. Never was an issue. I wish I still had it. I think it was a size small. I would squeeze into it at this point. I used to have A Matter of Life and Death, but this album was actually stolen from me, along with like a stack of albums like this. I know Slayer, actually all 3 or 4 of my Slayer CDs I had at the time were stolen. Megadeth, their 2002 album System Has Failed, I think is what it was called. And a couple others got stolen from me. I don't know who stole them or what happened to them, but they disappeared and I never got them back. So I actually don't have a copy of A Matter of Life and Death, but I once did, and I need to get another one. The 2 singles, pretty badass. Different World, Reincarnation of Benjamin Brigg. Again, awesome songs, not really carried forward. Not much of this album at all is carried forward, if any. But really, there's not a ton to say about it. I really do love this album. We'll dub it as the Iron Maiden album that flies under the radar. A Matter of Life and Death. Solid record, solid track list. It would have been cool to see it live and see them play it in its entirety. I'm always a fan of that. I like when bands play albums in its entirety. And of course, people, not everybody loved that. That's about it. This album's a super nostalgic album to me. I'm going to put it at number 12. And again, the album coming next, they're fairly interchangeable. I'll get into that in the next one of why. But as for now, that's about it. A Matter of Life and Death sitting at number 12. Go to patreon.com/heelsandquads if you want to become one of our patrons. We just wrapped up our fantasy football league. I came in 3rd place and Tommy came in 2nd. And one of our Patreons, Derek, won. So good for you, buddy. You got the pot. Maybe next time I'll get the pot. Maybe next time one of you will get the pot if you go to patreon.com/heelsandquads and sign up and become one of our patrons. Monthly hangouts, stuff like that. All that's going to be popping off here soon. We got to get some stuff rolling here. Also, copperjohnsbeard.com. Mine is currently ungroomed and growing out because it's really cold and snowy out. I'm going to need to go to copperjohnsbeard.com and use coupon code HeelsandQuads in all caps at checkout to save 15% on your order, or my order, to fix up my beard. Until next time, I will see you at number 11 of the Iron Maiden Rankings series, and I'll explain a little more why these two are interchangeable. But until then, tell your friends, tell your enemies, and I will see you then.